Hey y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. Coming to you live from the Open Arms Podcast Studio. Here I am with Scott. Oh, do we need to...
You said Open Arms Podcast Studio. I figured that was worth
it. And we got Scott here too. He gets his own round of applause. He's toughing it out. We're more than halfway through Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And we are looking at, again, Rule 7, which pursue what is meaningful. I wrote it down there. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And you actually texted me this morning and said, hey, there's a lot of Bible stuff in here. And there are a lot more references maybe than some of the other ones, but there's a lot of other stuff in here too. It is super duper dense. It's like a 40-page chapter. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in here. Although if you hated when we talked about how kids were evil, you will probably hate this one too.
Oh no.
You know, it's I mean, didn't you get that kind of that perception with this one? Get that sense that this is really drilling down deeper on how human beings, the capacity for evil of human beings is just so great. I mean, isn't that kind of what it's about?
Yeah, basically he starts out life stinks.
Life stinks. Life is suffering, which, interestingly enough, is not a universally or not exclusively a Christian idea. That's Buddhism, too. Life is suffering. Why do you suffer? Because you have desire. And so what's the solution? Stop having desire for things. Don't want stuff. It's easier said than done. But, life is suffering. And he does dig into that and explains that and then how human beings have sort of adapted to that reality or responded to that reality. Does that sound kind of right?
Yes.
And, the solution is in some ways, okay, so life is suffering, so I guess we just pursue pleasure, right? Just do what feels good, what you want to do, what's pleasing. Follow your impulses, live for the moment, do what's expedient. That's, again, part of the rule here. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And I think that's pretty common today, too.
Yes.
This is...
Life is short. I don't know. What's the saying? Life is short. Do fun things or something. I don't know.
There's 1,000.
YOLO. You only live once.
Oh yeah, YOLO. I mean, so actually, when we were doing John chapter 1 a while back, it was that first chapter. Tim Keller gave this. I tried to share this in the Bible study that we were doing, but this idea that the Word became flesh, the Logos, this idea of Logos is prevalent in Greek culture at the time of the first century. The Greek philosophers of the time were like, hey, there's this Logos out there, and Logos is more than just word. It's like concept, idea, the secret or the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. And right around the first century, people basically said, you know what, we've been looking for this key to unlocking the secret of the universe, the Logos, for a long time, and you know what? There isn't one. We can't figure it out. Doesn't make sense. We don't know.
It's 42.
42. Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So there isn't one. So what do? Well, two responses, basically, in the Greek philosophical world of the day. One is, okay, so there isn't one. you may as well enjoy life as much as you possibly can. And I think those were the Epicureans. Enjoy it, because otherwise you will just hate yourself and every moment of this life, and it's just too difficult to even bear the thought that everything is meaningless. And then the Stoics were sort of like, you know what? Yeah, there isn't one, but act like there is. And so stiff upper lip, face life. It's tough, but do the right thing. The right thing, even though there isn't really a logos. And that's kind of what I think he's getting at. That wasn't really I don't know if it was the first time, but it's not the only time that people have said, hey, you know what? Life sucks. You may as well enjoy it. And people say that a lot these days.
Yes.
And even if they don't say it, they act like it, So, I don't know. What else? Anything else on that?
Well, other than, I guess it leads to a very nihilistic, because he talked about a particular example of someone who can't, once you come to that realization, it's like, oh, who was it? Was it Socrates?
He does go into,
Yeah, basically. And he was accused of some crime, and at least when he died willingly, he died speaking the truth. And he went on to about the kind of the angle that I was going with, though, was that Dr. Peterson was saying that he could have died, he could have fought it out or resisted and lived a long life and, died in a decrepit manner. It was very depressing.
Yeah.
So Socrates almost did better because he spoke.
He got himself out of it.
He got it. Well, yeah.
He's like, well, not out of the crime, but he got himself out of this miserable piece of garbage world.
Right. Right. But at least he was speaking the truth. So.
And it's funny, I had this conversation with somebody recently. Somebody's in law enforcement, and they're trying to explain to me basically that most people don't get law enforcement people. Like, law enforcement people are the only people that get law enforcement. They're the only ones who get each other, right? And if you try to talk to somebody, particularly part of our conversation was like about Jesus. If you try and talk to somebody that's in law enforcement about Jesus, but you're not in law enforcement, you're not going to make a whole lot of sense to them. You're not going to have the leverage, maybe not leverage, but influence or respect, you just don't have that kind of, what's the right word?
Like a shared perspective, a way to communicate the...
Yeah, you don't have the rapport, you don't have the credibility. That's probably the word I was looking for, credibility, right? There's something about it. And what is it? Well, has a lot to do with the fact that people in law enforcement are acutely aware of just how disgusting human beings can really be. And so because of that, they don't trust people, and they don't believe a lot of the stuff that we believe about life being basically good. It's like,
right.
Because they see the crap every day.
Every day, too.
Like the worst crap every day. So, that sort of begins to jade you a little bit. Now, this particular conversation, they made the case that, well, yeah, but Jesus, and so now Jesus, he doesn't make me like warm and fuzzy, and again, why law enforcement gets law enforcement. So like you and I, we might be like, oh, you're a Christian? Why are you such a jerk? Like, well, because I'm a law enforcement, because he's got this edge because of his experience of just all the evil in the world. But he says now with Jesus, it's, he can actually see the good when it's there instead of just dismissing it. So it's not only evil. It's not only bad. There is good. And he can accept that now and appreciate that in a way that he couldn't before. And that is all because of Jesus. But doesn't change the perspective. Like Peter says, life sort of sucks. every man for himself. He talks about this idea of being exiled from paradise, and moving from that idea into what he begins to talk about as sacrifice. And that, I think, actually takes sort of the bulk of the chapter, or at least the first half or more, right?
Right. Yeah. His, I guess, his explanation of the garden was everything was, going pretty well. And, as people did the wrong thing, and their consciousness was awakened.
Mm.
So, and that kind of led human nature, or the human condition down this road that we've been on. We're aware of more than what they were aware of initially. In other words, they weren't just satisfied with they weren't satisfied with the good life, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
But I'm sure, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that we're not satisfied because everything sucks, Well, not everything, but,
yeah.
Yeah, and it starts this movement towards sacrifice. In the beginning of the Bible, Genesis chapter 3, like there's this instinctual move after the fall into sin where sacrifice is required. Right? Like,
Cain and Abel.
Yeah,
Right.
Cain and Abel are already doing this. There's this sense that if you give up something, the future is better. I think that's kind of the key that connects it to his, dismal assessment of life. That, yeah, we don't like the fact that it sucks, but maybe if we do this, it can make the future a little bit better. And, and he ties it to God. Like maybe there's this being in the sky that is looking down on us. And if we give something up to that being, then the future will be better. He'll do something about this. Is that sort of...
Yeah, Abel, the two brothers, Abel was the one who was striving or living his life, I guess, to be more pleasing. His sacrifices were better because he was bringing his best, and Cain was not. He chose the other path and became very resentful because, at least in Jordan Peterson's perspective, Abel was basically going through life, and he had it going on,
It was funny how he's kind of characterizing the two of them.
Yeah.
And how that drives people insane because life usually sucks. So who gives you the right to be happy? That kind of attitude.
Right. So, yeah.
And we don't really know exactly why. I mean, I've heard some interesting ideas, and I think they have a good chance of being right, but he makes the case that, it's not really all that clear. What is it about Cain's sacrifice that is so off? It's just not Abel's. It's not the best, maybe. Right?
Yeah, that's his perspective. After looking at it, from at least what I understood, was that, Abel was bringing forth the best that he had, and Cain was not. So that's, then the resentfulness, because Abel's, with his best, it affected his life, and his choices, I guess, were better choices. So his life was going along better. So there was resentment.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so that means that, we're in this miserable existence, but if we sacrifice now, we can gain a benefit later. We begin to inhibit, control, and organize our immediate impulses so that we could stop interfering with other people and our future selves. Right, so we make these, when we just obey our impulses, like, hey, it's just, everything sucks, so just do whatever you feel like doing. but that actually becomes sort of a defeating thing. Like it actually inhibits you. It works against your future self if you aren't cautious and you aren't making sacrifices in the present, right? Like delayed gratification. If you never choose to set aside anything for the future financially, I don't think this comes up early on, but he kind of references it later as one of many things. If you don't make that sacrifice, then your future self is sort of going to be ticked off at your previous self, right? So you got to be nice to your future self. So he's saying we begin to inhibit, control, and organize our immediate impulses so that we can stop interfering with other people and our future selves. He actually says this is indistinguishable from organizing society. It is ultimately what leads to the social contract, that everything about our existence is based on this idea that we make a sacrifice, we delay gratification, we postpone satisfying our impulses, and that is everything that we do. Like everything that makes society work as we know it. And the people that can't delay those impulses and delay gratification really have a hard time, big time, as a result of that. And then understanding that this is acted out before it can be articulated. So before we really understand this, people are already kind of doing this. Kind of later on, he goes into this thing with the woolly mammoth, like just, hey, look at all that meat. Can't possibly eat it all now. I mean, you could try, but why not save some for later? Why not share it with people, and you're creating a better future for yourself. He has this phrase here, the future is a judgmental father. Did you see that? So
that didn't stick.
Yeah. So we're, I had some question marks there. I think it's just that's, I think he's trying to get people to think about where, I don't know if he's suggesting this, but like basically like whether you believe in God or not, like this is sort of the similar idea. This future is a judgmental father, and sort of like having a God in the sky who's looking at everything you're doing and judging what you're doing, whether it's good or bad, judging your sacrifice, Cain and Abel, right? And we sacrifice now to gain later, but he's got these two questions that come up. It's, well, what must be sacrificed, and how good might the best possible future be if the most effective sacrifice could be made? So until you start thinking like this, you haven't thought of these questions, but once you start thinking like this, now you have these questions. You got Cain and Abel. What is the difference? Well, there's something about Abel and what he sacrificed that was better, and Cain's was worse. So you start asking these questions, and you start developing more effective sacrifices to achieve the best possible future. And so that kind of leads him into some more detail. I mean, it really is like an extensive, I don't know if I would say exhaustive, but pretty close. Like he's really attacking this every single piece and drilling down deeper and deeper on each of these little, not quite tangents, pieces of the puzzle. And I think it all kind of fits together pretty well if you can be patient enough to get through all of it.
He had this, I think, a concept in the previous chapter where, when you're comparing yourself, you shouldn't compare yourself to others. You should compare yourself to your future self. So this, in a way, ties that into that too, because the sacrifice you make today will benefit your future self. So.
Yeah. Don't compare yourself with who someone else is today, but with who you were yesterday.
Right.
That was one of the other, right? Now, when it comes to sacrifice, if you're making a sacrifice, if you're delaying gratification, it's only really useful when the world is somewhat stable. to guarantee the existence of the delayed reward. So if you have just an absolute train wreck of a world, you got, dumpster fire of a world, you got civil war, you got, just anarchy, you delaying just means you're going to miss out.
True.
Right? If you get that big woolly mammoth and, maybe some other animal comes by and eats it. Or maybe somebody else comes by and takes it. Like, oh, look, free food. Yes, I was about to die of starvation, and here we go. Right?
Well, when I read that part about the woolly mammoth, it made me think, okay, so you have all the supply, and like you said, you want to save it for your future, but you can also, by offering it as a sacrifice for others, you can build a community, right? So you say, well, I got this, I'm willing to share with you, and then you build some trust. And then when you need something, they'll have something to help you with. And then you get, you're building a community like that. That was the concept that I got from that.
You can save it, you can share it, and maybe others will share with you later, and maybe they will trust you, and maybe they will trade with you. And then this is where you get the emergence of the social contract. That's kind of what he was getting at, right? When you see mammoth, you don't just see mammoth. Now you see future mammoth, and you see a personal reputation, and you see essentially civilization, like trade, ongoing trade. So
investing in others, will be like an investment in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we do. People operate like this more than we realize. I don't think you have to be a Christian necessarily to operate like this. In fact, sometimes people that aren't Christian are better at it. I'm not saying that gets them into heaven or something, but it, maybe we can learn something from them.
What's the made me think of the verse about be wise like
wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Yeah. Quoted in The Chosen in the last episode.
Yeah, was it? Okay.
Judas, he was the one who mentioned it. So good on you, modeling Judas. He's like, hey, you. I wasn't actually trying to insinuate Judas, but he comes in this last episode that we saw. He comes up with this plan that he wants to make the ministry more self-sustaining and funded and all this kind of stuff. And he goes to Jesus. Somebody tells him. He tells the disciples about the idea. They all kind of like, "What are you, crazy? That's stupid." And then he finally has somebody come talk to him like more gently about it. And he says, "Well, what should I do?" It's like, "Well, you should go to Jesus. Ask Jesus. He's the boss, right? I mean, ask him." And he goes to Jesus and he says, you told us to be wise as you told us to be innocent as doves, but you also told us to be wise as serpents. So here's what I'm thinking, And and he just tells him to listen carefully to the sermon tomorrow. Oh, if your pastor tells you that, ouch, that's gonna be bad. But yes, be wise as serpents, innocent as doves. Yes, that's true.
Well, it made me think of that when you said that non-Christians may do a better job of that sometimes,
Yeah, well, I found this interesting. Ben Franklin, I think I had known this before. I'd seen it, heard it, whatever, but there's this, did he quote him here? Citing it all. Benjamin Franklin once suggested that a newcomer to a neighborhood ask a new neighbor to do him or her a favor, citing an old maxim. He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged. So if you do something for someone else, they are less likely to do something for you. But if you let them do something for you, they are more likely to do something for you. And there is some science out there, social science, about how people operate. And yeah, that's true. And it's something like, if somebody does something nice for you, they are instantly justifying why they did it. Like, oh, I did. They're just such a good person. They're really, really pretty special people. And then the more you do for them, the more you're saying to yourself, oh, yeah, it's so great. I'm just happy to help. I mean, I'm sure there's a limit to this, right? I'm sure it gets out of hand quickly if you're taking advantage of it. But
Yeah.
that is what's going on. It's something to keep in mind. If you're in a new neighborhood, ask somebody for help, which is ironically the one thing nobody wants to do. Not in America.
It's very counterintuitive for sure.
Yeah. You got to let people do for you. The way, this is sort of a tangent, but the way I try to explain that to people from a biblical perspective is, I think it's Acts chapter 20, verse 35. It says, it is more blessed to give than receive, as our Lord Jesus has said. So it's more blessed to give. So if you let somebody give to you, you are allowing them to be more blessed. And so to let them have the greater blessing, lay down your pride, humble yourself, and just receive something good that they want to give and let them have that blessing. So I think there is something to that. But you are actually doing a tremendous amount to build a strong relationship, a strong connection with people. So don't underestimate it. Don't underestimate it.
Yeah, he went down the road of Cain and some of the descendants of Cain, and then right before, I don't know where I'm going with this, but right before one of his descendants, was it Tubal Cain, came up with these different weapons. And he says, and then the next thing that followed that was Noah. In other words, things were going off the rails big time.
Well, I think that did you ever see that the Russell Crowe adaptation of Noah?
No, I have not.
It's a movie. It's 10 years old, maybe more, 12 years old. It's kind of weird. There's definitely some weird stuff. But I do think that the main antagonist is, I think it's this Tubal Cain character. And the way, it's like not just like sinners and not sinners. It's like Noah eats plants and not meat, and he doesn't kill, and he's not civilized in like society. There's not iron and, all these different things for weapons and whatnot. They're not technologically advanced, Noah and his family. Connected to the creation and the creator. And this guy, Tubal Cain, and all his descendants and families, they're like descendants of Cain, and they just kill people, they kill animals, they eat, they destroy the land. They, very much a environmental emphasis on it. But I do think that he was supposed to be Tubal Cain, if I remember.
Okay.
So, yeah, bad guy. They kind of turned him into a bad guy pretty well in the movie. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. Page 168 has got that Ben Franklin quote, but then it's got this nice, interesting little formula where's he got it? It's the end of 168. It is better to have something than nothing. It's better yet to share generously the something you have. It's even better than that, however, to become widely known for generous sharing. That's something that lasts. That's something that's reliable. And at this point of abstraction, we can observe how the groundwork for the conceptions reliable, honest, and generous has been laid. The basis for an articulated morality has been put in place. The productive, truthful sharer is the prototype for the good citizen and the good man. We can see in this manner how from the simple notion that leftovers are a good idea, the highest moral principles might emerge. So he's connecting these dots, getting into the minutia of where we end up with ultimately Jesus being the ultimate sacrifice, the perfect sacrifice, the archetypal sacrifice that we all now really throughout the West, especially kind of, he's the ideal. So, but it's funny. We're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks, going through the Sermon on the Mount, where, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. When you're fasting, don't look like that for people. Like, just anoint your head with oil and put on a smile and all that kind of stuff. Don't practice your good works before people. And I think this whole thing that he's describing here really helps you understand why that when you do it in front of people, you may not think you're doing it for all those reasons, but he is nailing down this. I mean, this is like at the foundations of civilization. We don't notice it, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. That a lot of our good deeds are really actually very self-serving. Now, it's better to do good than to not do good. So I would rather people do good, whether they feel like it or not, or whether they tell people or not, right? And I think you could make a case that, well, I don't care if you know because I'm not doing this to get a reward in heaven. I think you could make that case too. Like, I'm willing to sacrifice that because I can't really do this without you knowing it, and that's not why I'm in it, right? And if you're doing it for yourself, even if you think you're doing it for God, but you're doing it for God so that God blesses you, well, then you're doing it for yourself, and that makes it selfish, right? That makes it not really truly good, right? So that's just a tangent.
So in a way, it's like not like you're telling the truth, but you're not quite lying. You're doing something good, but you're not really truthfully doing it for the reasons you think you're doing it. It's a dishonesty to some point.
Well, I don't know if we ever really know why we do some of the things we do. There's a lot of reasons.
Get that dopamine.
Yep. And then our propensity and our extensive ability to convince ourselves why we did something in the past and that it was justified and was the best decision. Like we continue to do that, reinforce, sort of like confirmation bias. It's at the heart of what confirmation bias is, right? You've already sort of made this decision about something, and so anytime you see something, you're looking for reasons to support what you've already decided. So, that gets you into dangerous places when you do things. We're constantly justifying ourselves. So do it in secret.
I don't know when I look back at the things, but I tend to remember the things that I may have wished I would have done in hindsight than the things where I, maybe quote sacrifice for the future. And I don't even know if, I guess if I thought really hard, I could name a few of those things that I might have done, but those they just fold into your life, and they kind of make your life. They've made my life better, I guess, but you only think about the why didn't I do this at this time? If I'd only done that, if I'd delayed that gratification, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Well, I don't know what that means, but that was a thought that popped into my head.
Well, yeah, there's, hey, I didn't start saving early enough. Hey, I didn't.
If I'd only bought Apple stock
in 1985 or something. Yeah. Holy cow. Or Tesla stock in 2012 or whatever it was that it was available. 14 maybe. Yeah, that's or Nvidia stock, or any of these things, or like Michael J. Fox, right, in Back to the Future 2, right? They have the the sports book, they go back and Biff was really willing to make some sacrifices to get his hands on that thing. And it turned out great for him, but not so much for Hill Valley or Marty and the McFly clan. So, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right, though, that there's a lot of sacrifices we make that we don't even really, we don't recognize, or we don't necessarily see the payoff, but it's there. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like it's there, but
Can't necessarily go back and put your finger on one particular thing, maybe, or
yeah.
a lot of small things maybe that you've sacrificed along the way that most likely have added up over time to put you in a better, better place.
Doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing. What's meaningful, not what is expedient.
Right.
Right. And so that's how this whole idea of sacrifice is. It's like you're doing something that will have an impact later. It's not the most, it's not the most enjoyable thing to do right now. So, you work out. Why do you work out? Not because it feels good. Sometimes, like you get to a point where it could, oh yeah,
Right.
feel the burn, and oh yeah, I feel good. Like I got a good workout in, but it doesn't always feel good.
Right.
And so, but you're putting
When
yourself
you're
through
sore
that.
the next day.
Yeah, which I'm sore. That's only because I did
Didn't work.
what was expedient instead of what was meaningful for a long period, and therefore, then when I went to do it, now it's, it's more painful. A lot of things kind of got in the way and made it this long period of time. Same thing with the diet, right? I'm not going to have ice cream 7 nights a week.
That would be expedient.
I'm not going to have a bottle of wine a night, maybe a glass, something like that. But you delay. Or I'm not going to buy Starbucks every morning.
Right. I'm
going to make my own coffee, and maybe I get Starbucks on Friday, or I get it on Saturday morning or Sunday morning on my way to church, or I get it once. And you take that money and you can do other things with it. You can save, you can give it away to people, you can give it to your church, right? Churches, you're not willing to do the meaningful thing. You're doing what's easier. I feel like having a Starbucks, right? It's hurting not only you, but everything else, right? When we're not all sort of chipping in and making those sacrifices. And I think we see that more and more, that, churches kind of failing and just not great. Not just churches, lots of organizations that used to be kind of the bedrock of society are just, they just don't have the support that they used to have. So people don't like giving money to those things, but, they'll sit outside for a couple of nights so they can get the newest iPhone or something, but they won't fork over a few bucks for, yeah. So this is all kind of tied together, but it's not necessarily all direct. And where he's kind of going is that when you don't do what is meaningful and you only do what is expedient, eventually it kind of catches up with you, right? There was this interesting thing he said in the video version. Did you watch that video, the Rule 7 video? I didn't send it to you, but I know we've been...
Yeah, I watched it. It was depressing.
It was very depressing, yeah. And he said, I think I got this quote down right, but the way that there stops being Nazis is for you to know that the Nazis were you, and for you to decide not to do that again. This is the thing people won't do. You have to understand that you could not only do what the Nazi camp guards did in Auschwitz, but that you could actually enjoy it. And he's now kind of developed this idea, like there's the sacrifice and then there's the unwillingness to sacrifice yourself, right? You're willing to sacrifice others for you, not you for others. And so there's these two ways of doing it. But that's where if you pursue pleasure, if you follow impulses, if you live for the moment, if you do what's expedient, ultimately it leads to Nazi Germany. It leads to the gulags in Russia. It leads to all these other epic failures of humanity. And, it's just... But this all... there's one more quote, actually, I stumbled across that I thought was helpful. Because what Peterson is getting at is something that we heard him talk about when we went to go see him in April. And we may have mentioned in one of these already, but the John 3:15, not John 3:16, were, just 14 and 15. As Moses lifted up the bronze serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him will have eternal life, right? So what's going on with the bronze serpent? Well, that's Numbers 21. It's the people of Israel complain, right? They're doing what's expedient, not meaningful. They're not bucking up, under like, hey, let's just stay strong and persevere. Oh God, why did you? So
let's just go back to Egypt. It would be easier. Everything's there.
Yeah, why did you let us come out here to die? Yeah. All that. And then God sends these serpents, and they're going around biting people, and they're dying. And they cry out to God, God, why are you doing this to us? Please help us. And he says, okay, Moses, craft a bronze serpent and put it up on a pole, and then anyone who looks at it will live. So the serpents are the punishment. It's like, here's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you're capable of. If you will look at it, you can be saved. If you can own it, right? Own the fact that this is what you did, you will get healing. You'll get relief. And so, okay, fast forward to John 3:14, 15, and you get Jesus basically saying, hey, I'm the bronze serpent. I'm going to be lifted up like the bronze serpent. Anyone who believes, which in the Gospel of John, believing and seeing are intimately connected. So anyone who believes in him, believes in me, right? You got to look at Jesus on the cross, lifted up on this throne of his, this throne of sacrifice and suffering, and go, ugh. This is what he said about the Nazi thing, right? I did that. Did I do that? Yeah, you did. You did. You did that. And that's what you deserve. That's what God thinks of your sin. That's where it ultimately leads. Look at how horrific and painful this is. Look at how unjust it is. That's you. And yes, you did that. And that is the key to life. That is the key to a life of meaning. That is the key to growth. That is the key to not being as awful as you once were. And then there's this quote on page 180 of Carl Jung. He quotes him here. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Such a statement should give everyone who encounters it pause. There was no possibility for movement upward in that great psychiatrist's deeply considered opinion without a corresponding move down. It is for this reason that enlightenment is so rare. Who is willing to do that? Do you really want to meet who's in charge at the very bottom of the most wicked thoughts? I mean, it's G.K. Chesterton. Have I shared this? Maybe I have. I don't know. He's an English-British writer from the late 19th, early 20th century, I think. There's this newspaper that's asking people to submit. I feel like I said this recently.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Maybe not in one of ours. Maybe it was the one I was doing to try and cover up the whole kids are evil thing and explain it and all that. So, no, they're sending out to requests for the smart, scholarly, interesting people to submit an answer to the question, what's wrong with the world? And all these different people write all these different eloquent answers with lengthy, in-depth explanations, and G.K. Chesterton just responds with 2 words, I am. Right? What's wrong with the world? I am. And until we can say that, we remain a bigger part of the problem than we need to be. This is what's really, I think, wrong with politics, is that we got so many people right now that just can't see how their side is wrong, or what's wrong with, or what's right about the other side, right? Or why the other side really exists. Like, these are reasonable people. These are people just like you. And we talk about them like they're the most wicked, disgusting people on the face of the earth. So,
Well, I guess the thought that came to mind when you were saying that was I witnessed or participated with a full room of people that I think came to that conclusion at one time, at one moment, and that was when we went and watched The Passion of the Christ, because it was dead silent in that room.
Yeah.
I think most everybody, well, did they all get that it was them? Hopefully. Or us, it was us, all of us in the room, or whatever, however you want to say that. But they can definitely, see that he made a sacrifice,
Yeah,
So,
big time.
yeah.
But it's really the Passion of the Christ. I had a hard time just looking at it, just the blood and the gore. We've done it. We've watched it a couple of times since that initial one in, I think it was 2004, and it doesn't have the same impact. Maybe the second and third and fourth time, in part because the further away we get, the more those graphics and things don't look quite as shocking as they did then. And they were new then; they were at the top of the line then. Now we see much more graphic stuff,
More realistic, or
maybe more realistic stuff. But I think what that did, though, Passion of the Christ, is it did what John 3:14-15 was saying. As Moses lifted up the bronze serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him, whoever is willing to put their eyes on it and own it, just like they had to own the serpents, they have life. And that is why I keep hammering on the whole thing. People are evil, right? We are really bad. We are incredibly, unbelievably capable of things that you would not imagine. And in that video that we watched on, I think if you just type in Jordan Peterson Rule 7, there's a series of things, or Rule 5 or 6. There's kind of like he's up on a stage with sort of a reddish, pinkish background curtain sort of thing. And it's little snippets of some speech he gave somewhere, talking about all of this. And they're pretty good summaries, 5, 6, 7, 8-minute summaries of each of the rules. Clearly much better than we're doing, more succinct, right?
right.
But he talked about how he had this client, as a psychiatrist, he's meeting with this person, and they have this naive view of humanity that somehow this person's parents taught them that adults were just angels. They were just unbelievable angels. And now this client of his is dealing with a world that's really not like that. It's terrible. And I think he even mentions in here about a woman that was having these physical manifestations of anxiety and stress and whatever, fear, because of someone who is abusing her, right? And that fear, right? Like there is somebody and they're way worse than I thought they were or that I thought people could possibly be.
Mm.
And World War II Germany epitomizes this idea because there were people. I actually had this. Who did I have this conversation with recently? Maybe one of my kids talking about World War II. Yeah, one of my kids got a book from the Andrews Book Sack over here, West Hall, like a kid book explaining. So what is the Holocaust? You know, one of these. It's a series of books that have like questions. Who is this person and what is that and where is this and what about this place? And so one of my kids reading this book and then starts asking questions, and I'm like, there were people in these beautiful, idyllic, countryside villages, just like didn't have a care in the world. Everything's beautiful and wonderful. Oh, nothing bad happens here. And yet off in the distance, you can see smoke coming up from some building and, oh, that's human beings being burned alive, stone's throw from where I live. And our capacity to refuse to sacrifice anything, even when it could mean something significant for someone else, right? So there were people that cared more about their stability and keeping things as they were and this idealized view of it. They were more concerned with that than they were concerned about the fact that an enormous number of people were being killed just right down the street.
Yeah, I read that Bonhoeffer book recently, or what is it? There's another way to pronounce it.
Bonhoeffer
maybe is the more
Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the official German way to say it. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's right.
Most people say Bonhoeffer.
But you listen, reading that, it was surprising to me. Germany reminded me of America today.
Yeah, how so?
Well, he had a family and, and had friends, and they actually had a summer type cottage, out in the woods, and there might have been a pond around or a lake around the cottage, but it was just like this idyllic kind of setting. It's not like technologically what we have today. There's probably there was no AC or any of that kind of thing, but I mean, you think about for the time frame, here's this family, the dad's a professor, I believe, and he does have some different family members that are clergy, pastors and stuff. But, you think about it, you think Germany, wow. And it's, that time frame, it's like, wow, people actually kind of had a pretty nice life going on there, at that time in Germany. Although, even though they just came out of World War I and things were a little tight, they were doing pretty well. They, talked about his, the family get-togethers and how he took piano and his siblings had piano and, did different music things, and they would get together and sing. And it was just, and then the whole, and then, things got worse as it went, but it's like, it's not far from what we're experiencing today. And then all of a sudden it took that turn, right? And really horrible things happened. So anyway, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that, but it's just
in
that.
Particular, kind of, you're getting at our refusal to sacrifice anything, right? Like we would rather just keep everything pleasant and, keep our life as it is.
Yeah, I think the thing, and I know I'm guilty of this, and I think the thing that I've realized recently, the thing that upsets most people is maybe not the most upsetting thing, but one of the things that gets them upset in their life, with politics or the government, is when suddenly things have gotten expensive and they can't take that trip to wherever they love to go every year,
Yeah.
and they have to. That makes people very unhappy because they had their little idyllic life going on,
Yeah.
and their little world was great, and now something's going wrong, and their future doesn't look as bright. Even just in that, I mean, it's not like they're
Yeah.
not going to have their next meal. You know, it's not even that.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? But
I think people are genuinely concerned that that is a possibility.
right.
Maybe not their next meal, but it is going to have to change what they can buy, what they can eat, how much. And, it starts with the trips, but eventually that cuts into, if you
Right.
don't, if it doesn't stop. And I think,
Maybe that's what it is. They're seeing that
Yeah.
the slide of it, but this is the beginning of the slippery slope. But I don't know.
well, and I definitely felt that personally. And, obviously that's, not maybe what God is most concerned about, taking a trip somewhere. But life is about expectations, and when your life expectations don't meet your actual life, it makes you very frustrated and upset. But there's ways around that, ways to deal with that, and sacrifice. Life is sacrifice, and just kind of deal with it. You just got to get over it eventually.
Yeah.
Be thankful for what you do have, and
I was just, to me, it was reading that, it was just like almost a parallel, at that time in Germany, because he could travel. He was traveling all over the world. He came to the U.S. a few times. He came, gosh, I can't even remember all the places he goes. He talked about all these trips that he had planned. His grandmother wanted him to go to this place to experience something. It's like,
well,
man, sweet. You
Yeah.
were doing it, and then.
Well, and he came here and could have stayed and avoided death,
Mhm.
but he eventually.
Yeah, he did. He
went
did
back.
make some sacrifices. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did.
I feel like there was a period there where things were just different. Things have gotten more expensive. There is a growing divide. I know Peterson's got this, the Pareto distribution stuff that, there's always going to be wealthy people. There's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be these uber successful people. But I do feel like, and I've had conversations with other folks that have lived through some of those eras, that, it's just not the same today. You can't get by on the same amount, but
Right.
that's not really, we're not here to talk economics exactly, but the tangential point was people will do a lot and overlook a lot to preserve what they want and have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's sort of what happened in World War II. In fact, there's this woman named Hannah Arendt. This is from a long time ago. Adolf Eichmann was on trial in Jerusalem. This is part of, the aftermath of World War II, looking for the people that were the leaders of all the really bad stuff, and calling them to account, essentially holding them accountable, bringing them to justice. And it was shocking to her just how the banality of evil, the just like, it's not the big scary horned devil. It's like your next door neighbor Bob, who keeps his grass mowed, and he always takes out his garbage and helps you with, he's the guy on trial for murdering 6 million Jews. Like, that was the thing that really freaked people out. That was the thing that really messed with people. So, messed with her, and she reported on this. And again, if we aren't on guard for this, then it will consume us. It will get at us. And I think we are in danger, like you said, now, because we do have a lot. and life is pretty good. We want to keep that stuff. And more you see people being really militant about who they allow to speak and don't allow to speak, and who they shut down and who they cancel. And, if you aren't in line with a certain view of the world, then, man, and I'm not saying that everyone's not doing it, but when you don't have that influence, you don't have that power, then you don't have the same ability to do that, right? But when you control a lot of different parts of our culture and how we get information and how you get an education and the kinds of movies and TV shows and all that, when that is all consumed with basically one narrative, and they have the power and the ability to shut down everybody else, yes, it is kind of looking like World War II. And the irony, of course, is that the people that are saying that that's an issue right now are the people that get yelled at the most about how they're actually the problem, and it's like the Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. But I think Jesus, my kingdom is not of this world, and render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what is God's. I think part of why we're here is because we've tried to achieve things with methods that are not the church's role. I think if the church was doing what the church is supposed to be about, we're too busy having a good life.
All right.
And it might just be too late, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not saying we're, necessarily headed that way, but like the last chapter is, we have to get our own lives in perfect order if we keep, if we can realize that, if we can all realize that, or even a majority of that, or even just the Christians, the current crop of Christians out there, can do that much, it can make a big difference, I think, keep trying to keep our own, getting our own acts in order.
Yeah.
And looking at, the sacrifices that was made for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we'll have to, and then along the way, we have to make a few sacrifices of our own.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's Jesus, right? The epitome of sacrifice. Actually, he talks about it in a really unique way that, on the one hand, God is sacrificing his son. Jesus is giving up everything. But at the same time that Jesus is giving up everything, God the Father is also giving up his son. And so it's like this beautiful, perfect, like you could never top it act of sacrifice. And I think that was very, very interesting, very enlightening, powerful stuff that, man, if God is willing to make sacrifices for a better future, I mean, maybe for him because he loves us and he wants us to be with him, but really mostly for us.
Right.
Like we get a really, really good future because he's willing to make a sacrifice. And then you've got Jesus doing the same thing. What are we willing to give up in response to that kind of sacrifice? Well, Are we willing to live in line with that? Are we willing to give up? So the idea of delayed gratification. Is there anything you can really give up in this life that you wouldn't get back 100-fold in the future? Not that you give up in order to get, but I mean, I don't think there's going to be poverty in eternity, right?
Right now. Right.
I think we'll have access maybe to as much ice cream as we want. There's a movie, Albert Brooks and Mel Streep, Defending Your Life. It's from like the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I don't think so.
It was like on repeat on HBO for a while, and somehow I got stuck watching this thing. And defending your life, this idea that you die and then you have to go defend your life, but it's not really Christian exactly. And there is sort of this reincarnation stuff that's in there. It's weird. But they're in this in-between place defending their life before they can move on to better things. And you can eat as much as you want of anything, and you never gain weight. You never feel full. You never anything. You feel full maybe for a second, and then say, you don't want to take some with you? Like, no, I'm okay. Just take it with you. And then they take it with you, and then like 5 minutes later, like, oh, I could eat some more. Let me open back up because I'm not full. Wow, this is really good. You're just this endless pleasure, endless, enjoyment of the small things in life that make life so special, right? What you eat.
Isn't that what Epicureans were about?
Yeah, but but you're doing it to enjoy it for real, not to avoid the fact that life is miserable. Like, this is life now. So anything we give up, it's not like it's not going to come back to us in an infinite abundance, right?
But that's the key. That's the hard part, though, right? That's the tricky part. When you're giving up that whatever Starbucks or whatever it is that you like, when you're 21 years old or something, and you decide, I'm going to have to maybe work 2 jobs to get through school, or I really need to buckle down and study. I can't go out this weekend with my friends or do whatever, and it's like, I just can't make it. This is, what am I doing? This is just horrible. And if you can, get through it, it's hard to see you don't know what the future is going to be, right? You have some ideally picture, and it's never what you thought it was going to be anyway when you get there. But in a lot of ways, it's better, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably better than what you could have imagined.
Well, it's how you started. Like, I can't pinpoint where those sacrifices made tangible, obvious, measurable sort of impacts on my life. But I think it's been good, from where I was to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably true for most of us, if we're willing to make any sacrifices. Yeah. And sometimes I don't think we're thinking that what we're doing is a sacrifice, but it is. Getting up at a certain time, studying. Ideally, you're making sacrifices for things that you really love and enjoy, so it's not like a sacrifice. But sometimes you got to do some stuff you don't want to do. But. Well, you think we beat this thing to death yet? I mean,
yeah, I think so. We covered most of it. I mean, there's a lot more in the chapter. He does compare Jesus being tempted in the desert to.
Yes, yeah.
It's, almost the opposite of what Cain was doing, kind of a mirror image showing how, Jesus turned down the.
Yeah, there's a quote here I actually had highlighted. It means that Christ is forever. I didn't say that quite helpfully enough. It means that Christ is forever he who determines to take personal responsibility for the full depth of human depravity. So he who is this person who takes on the complete responsibility for human depravity. It means that Christ is eternally he who is willing to confront and deeply consider and risk the temptations posed by the most malevolent elements of human nature. It means that Christ is always he who is willing to confront evil consciously, fully, and voluntarily in the form that dwelt simultaneously within him and in the world. This is nothing merely abstract, although it is abstract. Nothing to be brushed over. It's no merely intellectual matter. And then he goes into this thing. Soldiers who develop post-traumatic stress disorder frequently develop it not because of something they saw, but because of something they did. Back to, hey, we are capable of some really, and life puts us in these situations. If you're in law enforcement, if you're in the military, you're forced to face the worst of the world. And Jesus is that person who most fully confronts evil always and forever, all the time, and bore it on his shoulders on the cross. And, so imagine what could be in store for us if we were willing to face what we have truly done, what we are truly capable of, what others are capable of, and recognize this in the world. Because what's wrong with the world? I am.
I think you about wrapped it up.
About wrapped it up. All right. So time to go, y'all. Don't forget about these wonderful publications here. Open Arms, Connecting People to Jesus, Nola's Icelandic Adventure, Nobody's Nola. Make sure you like and share and subscribe and all those good things. Lying is next, I think. Tell the truth, at least don't lie. There's a lot of tough stuff in here, but again, the tough stuff is what leads to better outcomes. If you don't do hard things, if you only do easy things, you don't make sacrifices, you'll never really get anywhere. There is no better future without a sacrifice. So join us, as painful as it might be for you.
Make the sacrifice. Huh?
As depressing as you may feel once you're done. Hopefully it's not that depressing. It's really good. I mean, I can just say that my own personal, this is not just Jordan Peterson. I've got at least half a dozen books on my shelf I could point to that basically say, until you face, like one in particular, the Emotionally Healthy Leader, or Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, or Pete Scazzaro, he goes after this idea. You got to face your dark side. Until you face your dark side, you will encounter the same problems. You will encounter the same people. You will have the same outcomes. Your life will suck. It will suck in all the ways that hurt the most until you realize that you are actually part of the problem. So at least that's been my experience. But maybe I suck a little more than most people too. So, I mean, I am from New York and I am me. Also Viking, Vikings did a lot of
pillaging.
Yeah, lots of bad stuff. And anyway, great to be with you, y'all. Great to have Scott with us. And hope we can catch up with you again soon. Later. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is sweeter. Can't forget that.